Mordekaiser. Morden meaning murder. Kaiser is the emperor. I googled that. Mordekaiser. Let me ask you what you think this music's gonna sound like, because chances are it's gonna be broody, scary, intense, lots of ripping and tearing, and not to quote Doom here, a separate game, but that's what I'm gonna go for, and here we go. Now that's a Mordekaiser. Simply going on record and saying that I believe that Mordekaiser, I am not a person who knows anything about League. I do not know League. Mordekaiser is the big bad of League. And I like how once upon a time I was like, Viego is the big bad of League. No, not at all. Viego? Him? Viego the sad prince? No. Aatrox? Some of you got so mad when I said Aatrox. Aatrox? The big bad? No. Mordekaiser? Yeah. You wanna know how I know that? Listen. Right? Instantly, with the sharp rhythmic intensity here, it sounds like there is a 100,000 person orchestra that's coming in, and it's clearly a menacing tone. You hear that, right? It's very menacing. Ba-bam, bam, 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 ba-dum. I am here to feast on your soul. You know what I mean? Like, that is unbelievably powerful and unbelievably intense, and it smacks you in the face, and you're like, holy shit, oh, Mr. Mordekaiser. He's like 8 feet tall. It's a visceral sound quality in there that to us, when we listen to it, gives us a sense of fear. And it gives us a sense of discomfort, but not discomfort like this is really creepy, discomfort like this thing will crush you with a single swoop, you know? What the f? That is crazy!
Mordekaiser, the Iron Revenant, is an unstoppable juggernaut back from the afterworld as the new master of death. 3 spells or attacks against the champion, damages nearby enemies, and gives Mordekaiser movement speed.
No escape!
Mordekaiser slams down his mace, dealing damage in an area or bonus damage to a single enemy. The evil overlord absorbs damage taken and damage dealt to charge his shield. Mordekaiser can consume the shield for health.
Unbreakable!
A deadly claw drags enemies toward him, dealing damage and tons of terror.
Yeah. Let me just listen to some voice lines here, since that's something everyone was requesting.
Unbreakable! 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 Unbreak thrice born. Death cannot hold me. I have bent the realm of the dead to my will. This world shall be next.
Our man Mordekaiser's a very confident because he was killed twice and came back to life thrice. In a previous epoch, the fierce warlord San Uzal rampaged across the northern wildlands driven by dark faith. He crushed every tribe and settlement in his path, forging an empire in blood and death. As his mortal life neared its end, he took great satisfaction in knowing he had doubtless earned a seat at the god's table in the glorious Hall of Bones for all eternity. Yet when he died, he found no halls or glory awaiting him. Instead, San Uzal stood in an empty gray wasteland shrouded by ethereal fog, which we actually hear in that middle section, and plagued by discordant whispers. Occasionally, other lost souls drifted nearby, little more than ghostly shapes, wandering their own personal oblivion. Anger consumed San Uzal. Had his faith been false, or was his domination of the world simply not enough to grant him the immortality he craved? Surely this emptiness could not be all there was, yet there seemed no end to it. He watched as the lesser spirits slowly faded into the fog, unmade and lost to time. But San Uzal refused to fade. His will, tempered by rage and torment, held him together over time. The unknowable, disembodied whispering in that place crystallized into words he could almost comprehend. This, he learned, was Ochnun, a profane tongue unspoken by any among the living. Slowly, a deceitful plan began to form in what was left of San Uzal's mind. He began to whisper temptations across the veil between realms, promising his indomitable strength to any who dared listen. And sure enough, the day came when the Covenant of Sorcerers resolved to bring San Uzal back from the dead. Lacking any flesh or bone, he spurred them into making him stronger than an immortal, binding his spirit form in dark metal plates and wrought in the likeness of his old armor. So he rolls a hulking revenant of iron and hate. These power-hungry sorcerers had hoped to use him as a weapon in their trivial wars. Instead, he slew them where they stood, their weapons and magic useless against him. In desperation, they screamed out his name to bind him, but to no avail, for San Uzal was no more. With an ethereal rumble, he spoke his spirit name in Ochnun, Mordekaiser. Thus began his second conquest of the mortal realm. As before, his ambitions were great, only now empowered by necromantic sorceries he could never have previously imagined. From the fearful, dissipating souls of the sorcerers, Mordekaiser forged a weapon fit for an emperor of death, his brutal mace Nightfall, and seized control of the army they had raised. To his foes it seemed he cared only for massacre and destruction. Entire generations perished under his relentless campaigns. However, there was far more to Mordekaiser's plan. He raised the immortal bastion at the center of his empire. While most assumed it was merely a seat of power, some came to know the secrets it held. Mordekaiser hungered for all the forbidden knowledge of spirits and death, and a true understanding of the realm, or realms, beyond. Such tyranny could only bring him enemies. The Iron Revenant was defeated, surprisingly, by an alliance of the Noxi tribes, and betrayal from within his own inner circle. This hidden cabal managed to sever the anchors of his soul from his armor, and sealed the empty iron shell away in a secret place. And so Mordekaiser was cast out of the material realm. However, unbeknownst to anyone, he had planned for this. Indeed, it was a pivotal part of his design. Domination and deceit had carried him far, but he knew that a destiny far grander than the Hall of Bones awaited him. There in the once empty wasteland, all those who had died under his latest reign were waiting. Perverted by dark sorcery, their spirits would never fade. The strongest became his devout eternal army, bound to his will. But even the weak were given purpose. From the subtle matter of their souls, Mordekaiser would forge a new empire. They would be building blocks and mortar of his afterworld. Centuries have passed on Runeterra, and another empire has arisen around the immortal bastion. Mordekaiser's name is still whispered in fear and awe by those who study the old histories, and remembered unkindly by the few ancient souls who knew him. For them, the greatest terror would be for Mordekaiser to find his own way to return permanently. It is something they pray will not come to pass, for they know of no way to stop him. Yeah, so right there, Mordekaiser, you hear the return, that sort of rebirth in the iron armor there. You know, you can even picture it. I have returned, right? There's an intensity in this. The drums help us to identify this unrelenting force that is incapable of being stopped. electric guitar signifies his soul in some ways. In the silence here, we hear the hushed, whispered voices of that ethereal plane. And so you see that a piece of music can emulate and tell you about the characteristics of a character just simply from the music alone, and it's incredibly profound. Obviously, knowing the context, it's a little bit more interesting. I can pick out a little bit more things. However, that said, right off the bat, you can hear so many aspects of what make Mordekaiser imposing and fearful, and the Iron Revenant. Hope you like this. There's a lot more League on the channel. Feel free to like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.